Hello, everybody. My name is the TCG Outlaw, and today I am showing off my upgrade to the Dance of the Elements Lorwyn Eclipse precon with Ashling the Limitless. Now, small disclaimer, this upgrade is by no means the most efficient way to upgrade this deck. I took some cards that I had, looked over them, and thought, hey, I think this would be a cool addition to the deck. So, by no means that this is the most efficient way to upgrade this deck. Also, this upgrade list is not the most budget friendly. I do have a couple cards in here that are kind of on the higher price range. So, if you can't afford them, that's okay. I might end up doing a more of a budget friendly upgrade to the deck. But let's go ahead and get on into the upgrades. So I removed 30 from the deck and replaced it with another 30. Now, I tested the deck as a precon at my LGS last week, and the first thing I noticed that I was having a lot of issues with was the mana base for the deck. 2 out of the 6 games that I had, or sorry, no, 3 out of the 6 games that I played, I noticed that I was having a lot of issues with getting Ashling out by turn 3. Too many tapped lands in the precon. So that was the first thing I fixed. So the lands that I took out was, I took out Thriving Grove, Opulent Palace, Thriving Heath, Opal Palace, Sandsteppe Citadel, Jungle Shrine, Savage Lands, Seaside Citadel, Thriving Isle, Raging Ravine, Thriving Bluff, Thriving Moor, Frontier Bivouac. Those are the lands I took out. So, the replacements that I went with instead, like I said, some of these not really too budget friendly, but I replaced one with Overgrown Tomb, which is a shock land. I don't have too many shock lands, so Overgrown Tomb, Blood Crypt, Rejuvenating Springs. I like these lands a lot, because typically, if this card's in your opening hand, you're pretty much okay. It enters tapped unless you have 2 or more opponents. So, games go on for a while, still nobody has been, knocked out. This land's going to most likely come in untapped. Dreamroot Cascade. Land enters tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands. Battlefield Forge. Tap to add colorless mana or tap to add red or white. This land deals 1 damage to you. I replaced all of them. I upgraded to having each one of the pain lands. I have a Blooming Marsh. Enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more, or 2 or fewer other lands. Yavimaya Coast. Tap to add colorless, or tap to add blue or green. Llanowar Wastes. Same thing. Tap for colorless, or tap to add black or green. Deals 1 damage to you. Sulfurous Springs. Cave of Koilos. Underground River. Brushland. And Adarkar Wastes. So, that is the mana base that I fixed. I'm hoping that the deck runs a little bit better with changing the amount of, getting rid of the amount of tapped lands that the precon came with. So next up, I took out Kindred Summons. And feel free to pause the video, and I'm definitely going to leave a list in the description of the video of what cards I took out, what ones I put in. Crib swap. I mean, a 3-cost exile target creature at an instant speed, it's okay. I feel like Swords to Plowshare and Path to Exile just better. Springleaf Parade. Now, the reasoning I took this card out is, for most of the games that I played, I wasn't really trying to tap my tokens for mana. I was mainly trying to leave up what tokens I had to actually deal combat damage to my opponents. So I feel like Springleaf Parade just wasn't worth keeping in the deck. Fertile Ground. This enchantment aura, just enchanting your land for 1 mana of any color. It didn't come up hardly ever for the 6 games that I played. Descendants Furry. Now, I took this one out because I was having trouble getting it to work when the enchantment was on the battlefield. Most of the time, my opponents were just going ahead and chump blocking the creatures that I was attacking with, and I just could not actually ever really get the effect of the enchantment to go off. I was having a hard time, so I decided to cut it. Hoofprints of the Stag. Same thing. I mean, it's a really good early on enchantment. Just to draw a card and put a Hoofprint counter on the enchantment, and then pay 3 to remove 4 of them to create a 4/4 white elemental. With flying, if you guys like this card, perfect. I mean, I don't know. I just wasn't having a really good time with this one. Abundant Growth, same thing. And just enchant, add 1 mana of any color. Cream of the Crop. I didn't even really see this card come up too many times. I think I've maybe played it once out of the 6 games that I played. Fellwar Stone. Shatter the Sky. Distant Melody. Ingot Chewer. I just feel like this elemental creature is just kind of weak. A 3/3 with no flying or anything like that. It's gonna be chumped block every single time you swing it at somebody, most likely. And I mean, yeah, when it enters destroy target artifact, sometimes can be useful. If you want to, like, pop somebody's Arcane Signet or Soul Ring or anything like that, might be okay. But I chose to cut him. The Shimmercreep. The reason I cut this card is because the Vivid, gain X life, where X is the number of colors among permanents you control. I wasn't really seeing too many opportunities to gain a whole lot of life with it, so I went ahead and cut it. Belonging. It's a cool elemental. He enters, you create 3/1 colorless shapeshifter creature tokens. Most of the time, those creature tokens are just 1/1s, so good for blocking if need be. But I've chose to cut it. The Slithermuse. It really never came up to actually even bother trying to get that effect off. Most of the time, I had more cards in my hand than my opponents because I was just taking so much longer to cast anything. Because I will admit, my opponents, they did remove my Ashling a lot. That evoke cost for just cheating out big elementals is really good, and most of the time my opponents were just, no, we want to get rid of it. Don't let them keep it. Because if you let Ashling stay on the battlefield for too long, you will start to out-tempo your opponents at a pretty reasonable speed. Went ahead and chose to get rid of Foundation Breaker. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. I mean, it's okay, but... And then the Faeburrow Elder gets 1/1 for each color among permanents you control. And then you can tap it to add for each color among permanents you control, add 1 mana of that color. Again, didn't see too much use for this. Out of the 6 games I played, most of the time I was only having like 3, sometimes 4. This guy being a 4/4, so I mean, it wasn't too useful. So, that is all the cuts. So, now we'll go ahead and get into the additions. So, I'm putting in Ashling Rekindled. I really like this card, being able to just draw and discard, or discard and draw a card. I mean, I really like it. If she does transform, at the beginning of your first main phase, you may pay a blue mana if you do transform Ashling. So, and then she becomes Ashling Rimebound. Whenever this creature transforms into Ashling Rimebound, and at the beginning of your first main phase, add 2 mana of any one color. Spend this mana only to cast spells with mana value 4 or greater. And then at the beginning of your first main phase, you may pay red, and if you do, transform Ashling. I think this card is going to be really, really nice to have in the deck. I'm hoping, like I said, I'm going to take this back to my LGS on Tuesday and hope that these upgrades, work really, really well. If not, well, then back to the drawing board. Next up, I'm throwing in Roaming Throne. Yes, I will admit this is a proxy. I only have 1 copy of it, and it is in another deck that I have, so choosing to proxy it. Roaming Throne is a pretty expensive card right now. Right now, I think it's sitting about like $63 on TCG Player. But Artifact Creature Golem for 4, generic, Ward 2. As the Roaming Throne enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Roaming Throne is the chosen type in addition to its other types. If a triggered ability of another creature you control of the chosen type triggers, it triggers an additional time. So, having Roaming Throne out of the battlefield, Ashling triggers, it's going to be really nice. Next, I've decided to put in Rumbleweed, a 8/8 plant elemental for 10 and a green. The spell costs 1 less to cast for each land card in your graveyard. Remember, we're going to be casting it for Evoke 4. Not even worried about that mana cost. Definitely not worried about that. Has Vigilance, Reach, and Trample. When it enters the battlefield, other creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain Trample until the end of turn. That's 2 triggers off of 2 enter the battlefield triggers off of the Ashling, so creatures are going to be getting +6/+6 and Trample until the end of turn. Really nice. Next, we have the Herkburster Swarm, a 6/6 for 7 and a black elemental insect. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature card that you own in exile and in your graveyard. Has Menace and Death Touch. I feel like Menace and Death Touch, just 2 really good keywords, especially if you can have at least 2 of these guys on the battlefield, if not the 1. Next, now, the reason I've decided to put Sunspine Links in is because I was running into an issue where a lot of my opponents were either gaining a lot of life. I played up against 2 different life gain decks that night, and because the folks down in my LGS love their life gain decks, especially a couple of my buddies. So I decided to put in Sunspine Links. Elemental Cat, 5/4 for 2 and 2 red. Players can't gain life. Damage can't be prevented. When Sunspine Links enters, it deals damage to each player equal to the number of non-basic lands that player controls. So, once again, with Evoke, Ashling's going to get the Sunspine Links. You're going to get 2 triggers off of it, or more if you have Roaming Throne out. Next, we have Shroud Stomper, a 5/5 for 3, 2 white, and 2 black elemental with Death Touch. Whenever the Shroud Stomper enters or attacks, each opponent loses 2 life, and you gain 2 life and draw a card. Next, this was one issue I was definitely running into, is not enough mana ramp for 5 colors. So, I've decided to add Sky Shroud Claim. Search your library for up to 2 forest cards and put them into play, and then shuffle. I added a Farseek. Search your library for a plains, island, swamp, or mountain card. Put it on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Rampant Growth. Search your library for a basic land card. Put that card on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. I've decided to put in Urza's Incubator. It is an artifact for 3. As Urza's Incubator enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures of the chosen type cost 2 less to cast. Good thing is about this, the cost reduction does count with the evoke. So, you got Urza's Incubator out, you are only going to be paying 2 mana at most for the evoke cost. Great card to have, in my opinion. Next, we have Muster the Departed, an enchantment for 2 and a white. When Muster the Departed enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying, and it has Morbid. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, populate. Create a token that's a copy of a creature token you control. So, with this enchantment on the battlefield, when the evoke trigger happens at your end step to sacrifice the token, on the stack, you can have Muster the Departed trigger first, create a token that's a copy of it, and then the original will be sacrificed, and you'll still have the other copy from Muster of the Departed. Next, I've added Valkyrie's Call, enchantment for 3 and 2 white. Whenever a non-token, non-angel creature you control dies, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control with a 1/1 counter on it. It has flying and is an angel in addition to its other types. I feel like this card's going to be great in this deck, because cast the evoke cost, it will be instantly sacrificed, but you'll get the sacrifice creature, the sacrifice elemental, back onto the battlefield with Ashling with the evoke trigger on the stack. So you'll have 2 copies, and if you can still pay the Wooburg, you'll end up keeping 2 copies at the end of your turn. I feel like this card's going to come in really handy. Next, we have Renewed Solidarity, an enchantment for 2 and a white. As this enchantment enters, choose a creature type. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+0. At the beginning of your end step, for each token you control of the chosen type that entered this turn, create a token that's a copy of it. We're basically just trying to get more copies of the tokens that we're getting off the evoke triggers and keeping them around. Sometimes paying the Wooburg doesn't come up. These enchantments will help with that, hopefully. Next, I've put in Kindred Discovery, an enchantment for 3 and 2 blue. As it enters, choose a creature type. Whenever a creature you control of the chosen type enters the battlefield or attacks, draw a card. I feel like this card's going to be great for card draw. So, next, Up the Beanstalk, an enchantment for 1 and a green. When it enters the battlefield, and whenever you cast a spell with mana value 5 or greater, draw a card. Another good, just draw more cards, casting big elementals off the evoke cost. It's still going to trigger it. Still going to get that card draw. And next we have Smothering Tithe. This is another expensive card. Enchantment for 3 and a white. Whenever an opponent draws a card, that player may pay 2. If that player doesn't, you create a colorless artifact token, treasure token with sacrifice. This artifact, add 1 mana of any color. Smothering Tithe, I feel like, will help a lot with getting that Wooburg cost paid. And last, we have Bastion of Remembrance. Enchantment for 2 and a black. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So, that is the upgrades that I have chosen for the Born Eclipse Dance of the Elements precon. I'm going to be taking this back to my LGS on Tuesday, and I will see how it runs with these adjustments. I'm hoping it goes better than last week. But if you guys enjoyed this video, go ahead and click that like button. And if you have any suggestions or any other ideas on how to maybe upgrade the deck, go ahead and leave a comment. I'd love to hear it. And also, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, guys. I'm going to be trying to keep a nice, consistent schedule of uploading at least 3 times a week. And so, if you don't want to miss out on any of the videos, hit that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. But until next time, this has been the TCG Outlaw. See you later.